A legendary New Zealand high country sheep station was sold today, one of the few times in its history that it's changed hands. Mount Algidus went up for auction the other day in Christchurch. It was passed in at the auction, but the deal was finally struck this morning. Mount Algidus was made famous by Mona Anderson in her book A River Rules My Life, and Mona's story sold over 100,000 copies in a country where sales of 10,000 are considered big. And that was more than 30 years ago, but Jim Mora found out some things don't change in the big country below the Southern Alps, where men and women still measure themselves against the land and where a river waits to test them.
Mount Algidus, ladies and gentlemen, 1.72 million, a magnificent property, and 1.72 for the first time.
In a Christchurch auction room, it's just a commodity. But it's hard to put a price on a place like Algidus. It's known many generations of farming people like Graham and Sally, who are being forced out of the high country, their children who one day will look back on a time of growing up here and realise how special it was, and Mona Anderson, who had to leave here many years ago, but who found her heart had stayed behind. Algidus has a hold on all of them, and a river tells a large part of their stories. Mona's autobiography, A River Rules My Life, has been one of New Zealand's best-loved books. It made Algidus famous.
1.72 for the second time.
It covers 22,000 hectares, carries about 17,000 sheep. They have a lot of room. It's one of the most isolated and, for many, the most beautiful of our high country stations. And only a few people ever get to see it because the river guards it well. Mount Algidus has 3 wild rivers as boundaries, but the wildest is the Wilberforce, churning and turning its willful way down from the remote Browning Mountains. The Wilberforce has always had a dangerous reputation. 23 people are known to have drowned in it.
For almost the whole of 1 year, the river was high, sometimes in roaring flood. For weeks on end, we were without mail and bread. Still the weather remained in the northwest, and still the river ran high.
More than half a century ago, a young woman came up here with a piano and a trunk on the back of a horse-drawn wagon to marry a run holder named Ron Anderson. She was used to bright lights. She played in the dance band. She was nervous about moving to the back of Beyond. In the end, she stayed here 35 years. Now we were bringing her back to Algidus. And to get there, we had to avoid the river that Mona will not cross.
No, I fought it for 35 years and I'm not going to ever fight it again. I'll be bothered with it.
The least we could do was give Mona a lift. Way down below was Mona's old home, the house where she'd spent her first 11 years cut off from the outside world without telephone or electricity. It was cold. The name Algidus means cold, but she loved it.
I hated going. Oh, I hated going. But Ron's health had broken down, so we had to go.
I was going to ask you about that. It must have been a hard day the day you left here.
It was dreadful. And I had a pet lamb called Mary Lou. You wrote a book about her. And I had to leave Mary Lou, and poor Mary Lou followed me right away down, down to the bridge there. But, yes, it was very hard. I hated leaving.
It's the cold mountain looking down on them that gives their home its name, but it's the river that shapes their lives. It's the river that keeps them isolated and makes them strong. It's the cold heart of the Wilberforce River that teaches them respect and sets the rules for living up here in the high country.
You have to consider it whenever you're making plans. Yeah.
Is it scary?
Yes.
Is it something to be feared still?
Respected.
Oh, I'm scared of it.
Yeah. Graham got stuck and he called me up on the radio and said that he needed some help, and so I got the tractor and went down to the river, and when I got down there he was sitting on top of the cab, and just the cab the truck was sticking out.
Graham and Sally Nell have been here in the new house up the hill only 8 years. They came on borrowed overseas money, and the debt got bigger because of their bank's foreign exchange dealings. They never got their heads back above water. It's sad, but
we want to see the station looked after too. We haven't been doing a very good job lately because we've been financially prevented from doing that. So we don't want to see that continue. We want someone to own it who can afford to look after it and farm the place properly.
Sally and Graham have felt Algidus's isolation, but they know they'll never find a place like this again. During our time here, we see the sun set over the Great Divide, and we see it rise again from the Canterbury Plains. And the river valley looks brand new with the morning, as if it had been made again that day just for us. And we realise how hard it must be leaving Algidus. Mona goes the way she came, avoiding an encounter with the river that still has a say in her life. We take the low road, but first there are preparations. And in the end, the Wilberforce is in a friendly mood. The sentry decides to let us leave as the guard changes on Algidus and the station awaits its new owners.
And although the auction price remains a secret, they reckon the smart money is it sold for about 2.6 million, which is still a heck of a lot more sensible spending of money than 140,000 on a number plate, isn't it? That is Holmes tonight.